What's up, everybody? It's your girl Erica from the Classy Climb blog, part 2 of Going Broke with the BRRRR strategy in 2019. If you don't know who I am, I'm Erica Williams, the author of Smartphone Millionaire: How to Invest in Real Estate, People, and Businesses from the Palm of Your Hand. I love this creative financing type of conversations, but I just want to give them balance, and I want them to have a real context to them. And so as many of you start coming in, drop your city and state. Merry Christmas for those of you who are up with us late. Our East Coast folks, hey, we gotta make time for the West Coast folks. So, Mr. Charles Ogilvie, tell everybody who you are today before we get started.
Oh man, so what's really cool is this year I'm going to kind of step into more of the CEO of Todd Capital role and have presidents of different divisions of Todd Capital. So Todd Capital Investment Club, Todd Capital Investment Club for Real Estate, Todd Consulting, all those different things. So I run the ship that is Todd Capital that's only going to grow even bigger. We talked like 2 years ago when we were just building the investment club. We had like 60 or 70 members. Now we have over 300 members. And then we also have expanded into real estate. And then the goal next year is to expand into acquiring companies. So not only acquiring companies, but also acquiring trucks, acquiring commercial buildings, acquiring things like that. So always looking to challenge ourselves, always looking to step in different opportunities. So that's me.
What's up? So if you don't know who this is, again, Mr. Todd Capital Tax, Todd Capital Consulting, Todd Capital LLC creation. Again, for the first show, many of you are asking about help with your LLCs being set up, because Kiera brought out a really great point that a lot of people have very thin setups. And, the whole thing with Michael Cohen, Trump, and all these people, you're seeing that, even very important people who, if you have a thin business file, like something that doesn't have any kind of operating agreement, any kind of details, you can't be running millions of dollars in an account with your legal Zoom. Okay, you just can't do it. You got to have that thing filled out right. So call up Todd Capital. He's a JD. And what's up, Charm City Bars? Calling you Todd Billy at the start.
One thing that I think is really important, and one thing that I'm trying to do going into 2019 is it's not just LLC formation for me, it's business development. So that's why I'm offering the opportunity for people who do business with me in some form to continuously consult with me as things change, as things need to be modified. So for me, I always tell people it's not transactional. I have a vested interest in your business being successful. Just today, I had a client who does event planning, and they're promoting an event for a tax company that's also my client. And I thought that was so cool because, like I said, I don't just want you to get your LLC and put it on the shelf. I want you to use your company. I want your company to grow, flourish, create generational wealth for your children. So it was just kind of cool to see that crossover where my clients are working with my clients. So yeah, for me, it's not transactional. I want to see your business flourish, period. If that means we have to do something different, then by all means, but it's deeper to me than just that transaction, just the money that you're going to pay me for that one transaction.
For sure. This is so my big thing I was talking about earlier is that the key to real estate, honestly, is relationship building. There's money everywhere, but is it good money? Is it somebody you can work with? Is it somebody's going to make deals happen? Is it somebody you can work with long term? And I think people kind of get like, oh, whatever, Erica, tell me where I can get the money. And I'm like, there's a Jim Rohn quote: if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And I think people think, oh, that's just what salespeople say. That's just selfish and greedy. And I'm like, no. Like, it's a true thing, because I was telling them a couple of days ago, I was on a show, and somebody I've been like following for years, commenting, adding value to, all of a sudden reached out and was like, hey, you want to come up here to Nashville and come do this 2-day event on, creative funding? I'm just reaching out to you personally because you've been consistent. And I'm like, dang, thank you. You want to pay for my hotel? You're a millionaire. No. so it's just like relationships are important. And I think people miss out on that. So it's not just getting you your LLC and getting you for the cheapest effect and getting you through the door. It's really getting that personal and one-on-one experience that I hope you guys understand that. But so for the audience who doesn't know, explain to them what the BRRRR strategy is. And there's 40, almost 50 of y'all in here. Make sure you hit the like button and make sure you put a 1 if you can hear us. But explain to people what the BRRRR strategy is. The definition.
I think one thing that I think is important is to kind of understand where the inception of the BRRRR method as we know it came to be. And so there's somebody named Brandon Turner who is somebody pretty high up at BRRRR. And he did a real estate flip and he bought the property with the intention of selling it. When he went to sell the property, there wasn't a market for the sale because he had bought into the economic downturn in 2008, 2009. And so he has this hard money that wants to be cashed out with their balloon payment. He has the carrying costs that he has to continue to pay without a tenant in there. And then he had to figure out, what am I going to do with this property? And so what he did is he had this newly rehabbed property. He put a tenant in there, and then the tenant was able to cover the carrying costs. And then what he did to get rid of that expensive hard money is he refinanced out of that deal with help from his father. He had to help with his dad. And so he realized that, hey, this is a pretty good strategy. And so then he started actually proactively doing that. And so that's where the repeat comes in. So the acronym stands for buy the property, rehab the property, rent the property, refinance the property, and then repeat the process. So there's different strategies to do the buy. Some people use private money, some people use hard money. And then of course you want to put a tenant in there, do the rehab, all that stuff. That's pretty commonplace. But it's just a strategy that allows you to acquire property and then pull all your cash out of the property and then use that money to repeat the process.
So it's been one of these things I know people don't understand, but it's something that when people hear it, depending on where they are in life, it's like a life raft. It's like, oh, all I have to do, Erica, is have just enough money to get in the door. Now, to some degree, it's a mindset shift. You do have to have enough money to get into the property and then, figure it out as you go along. But something we were saying earlier is it's not that simple. You actually have to pay attention to fees, appraisal costs, exiting fees. There's a lot of steps in there where I hate for people to feel like they're oversold on a simple strategy, right? Because I feel like it's the same when someone says, oh, I use credit cards for real estate. You shouldn't do that. Well, some of the 2 or 3 of the biggest names on BRRRR as they talk actually says that all the time. Well, yeah, I use credit cards, but it was only my first 3 deals. And then I went and used other types of funding. Like, it's not something you do all the time. It's just a technique that may work for that particular deal. So that was my big stressing about it because, as 2019 comes along, something Todd wrote an article. And what's the name of that article you just had done?
Oh, wow. I forgot. I write so many.
See, he be rubbing it in. I'll be slacking on my blog. He'd be like, I just write all day, every day. I'd be like, whatever, Todd. I'm over here working. No.
The article is titled, The Race to Rent and the soon-to-be rental property bubble.
Right.
Race to units.
And so that's what I think people think, oh, man, if I've got 10, 20, 30 units, I'm going to be like, ooh, I'm going to be on cake. But when the last recession happened, most people I know, and some of them were in their 40s and some of them were younger, they had 5 to 10 and it's solid, like low cost, well-maintained units. And, the recession was here, but they weren't sweating it. It's the people who over leverage that are sweating it. And so I'm going to give this math example because we gave it earlier, but I want to give it again because, hey, new audience, new night, new show. So let's say you get a property, Todd, which is funny, Charles, and you get it for $30,000. You're like, whoo, I got it for $30,000. It's going to appraise some of the areas we invest in, $50K, $60K, but you got to put about $10 to $12K into it. So now you went from 30 to about 40K in, because I'm just giving examples of North Carolina. You put 6,000 in the kitchen, very basic kitchen, 6,000 in the bathroom, just to like up to like basics. And then let's say you end up having to put a little bit more in the front yard or paint coat. That's another $2,000. So now you're at 42,000 all in on this property. And the property is only going to appraise for 60,000 because let's just be honest, it's in the hood or it's in an older side of town, and it's not going to appraise for all this, double, triple. So if you're in the audience tonight, we've used this example earlier, 60K, because a lot of banks now are capping you off since the last recession, you're only going to get 85% out. Now, what Kiera was saying, she's seen a lot of 70, 75%, which I believe her. And so when I was telling the audience, do the math on that. Do the math on 70% return on your money out of 60, right? And what's 80%, 80% return. So, I mean, if you do the math, that leads you right back at about 42 grand, 48 grand. And that's depending on if you found the bank and you found the company who want to cash out refi you.
Right.
So what does that mean? That puts you right back, almost back out where you started. But now that property that could have been a great cash flow property has a mortgage on it. And now you're taking 42. You're not taking like a big 60 to go splash into another rental. Do you see what I'm saying? The numbers aren't, for some of these cheaper areas, the numbers may not be there.
Well, I think that one of the downsides of the BRRRR method is it's an appreciation play. It's disguised as a value add play, but even a value add play is still an appreciation play. It's just forced appreciation. There's multiple types of appreciation. You have natural appreciation, you have forced appreciation. So forced appreciation happens when you buy a property with the idea of putting money into that property to then force the value up. That's great if things aren't constantly going to shift downwards, meaning that we've been sold this idea that rental properties or properties are only going to continue to go up because that's what they've done for the past 10 years. And we've seen with the stock market, that's not always the case.
Yeah.
Now, the downside with real estate is a lot of people are using borrowed money. So when you have a 20% rollback, it's a lot bigger than a 20% rollback in your $2,000 stock portfolio or your $10,000 stock portfolio. Now you're looking at a property that was supposed to appraise for 100 grand that appraises for 80. So now you actually end up breaking even, if not worse. And then you start factoring in all those fees that Kara was talking about. And now you're taking a loss. And so now you're having to come out of pocket to close this. So I think that what's important, it's not that the BRRRR method is bad. It's that having only one exit strategy going into a deal is bad. And if your goal is to just BRRRR it and BRRRR it only, and you don't have the cash to do anything else, that's when you start getting into trouble. My issue isn't BRRRR. My issue is irresponsible real estate investing. And what does that look like? That looks like people who buy properties and they don't have enough cash to take care of the properties. Because if you BRRRR 20 units, yeah, you own those 20 units. But if you don't have enough cash to support those 20 units, if you lose 10% of your tenants, or if rents drop and you have to lower the rents when the new rents come through, you have to be able to weather the storm. And I'm seeing a lot of people who were investing for the sake of getting a bunch of cash right now and living that investor lifestyle that they see everybody else in Gucci this, Tulsa real estate fund, balling out, all that cool stuff. And that's one of my biggest fears. My biggest fears is that we don't learn from what happened last time, because a lot of people don't realize this, but there are a lot of African-American people that owned real estate the last time there was a boom. Like, there were a lot more African-American property owners, investors, flippers, realtors. Everybody was in the industry, but you can't spend your money. You can't, for multiple reasons. Not only do you have to have the resources to support what you own, but you also want the resources to acquire more that's at a new low. So every time I'm on your show, I talk about I forget his name, the guy with the coat of many colors. Like, now, if you're BRRRRing, you got to be stacking. You can't BRRRR and blow your money. You got to BRRRR and stack. You got to acquire rental properties and stack.
Yeah, well, and my whole thing is talking about getting new money. Where's the new money, right? Because here's my ideal here. Real estate has always been a wealth preserver, right? Like Aisha Sutton up in Philly is my perfect example over and over. She's a stockbroker. Like, she's a stockbroker and she buys properties like 2-3 grand auctions, and sometimes lets them sit for 2-3 years. That's why she's such an anomaly and a testament to what having the higher income is about. Is having the wherewithal to invest it. She can sit on it. She ain't stressing, and then she can put money in to fix it a little bit later. So now she's got tons of properties all over Philly, and somebody else who bought in Philly while it's hot, they had to put the money in right then and there. They had to use hard money. They had to do all these, tricks and jump through hoops to get this thing done. She ain't got to do that.
Right.
And that's why I'm always trying to say, look at, be careful. You're watching people, but are you really paying attention to the whole story? Like, her favorite thing that she says in an interview is, People be like, man, I gotta get you in the houses, no money down, bad credit, zero at closing costs, all up in that mug. She's like, and you know what? In a few years, I'll be buying your house.
Right.
And I think that's what happened. The last recession, it literally, unfortunately, there were, I think, a lot of African American people got into houses in Maryland, and Washington D.C. area, and Virginia. And honestly, let's be honest. If you were a person who got in last time in Washington D.C. and you held on, there's a whole documentary on this woman called Faking It. I don't know if you've seen that one. She's a black lady in D.C. It's called like Faking It or whatever. And she's in her 50s and she wants to retire, but she can't. Like, she kept taking all the equity out of her house after she lost her job. Like, she was at the top of her government salary, tried to start a business, it didn't work, and then she's been just tapping equity out of her house. But think about it, if she didn't have the house in DC that's been on fire, she wouldn't have had no money. And so, like, it's a double-edged sword, because I really feel like a lot of people got in the market last time that they just didn't know. They didn't have enough financial knowledge, if that makes sense, to hold on.
There's two things I kind of want to mention with Aisha Selden arguing. The first is she doesn't spend any money that she makes off of real estate. So if she does a BRRRR, she's either going to reinvest it back into another property, but she's always stashing her rental income. She's always keeping that cash there. I'm reading this book right now. I always quote a book. And he was talking about how, like, you're guaranteed to lose in the stock market. Like, it's going to come. And real estate is the same way. We know it's going to come. So why do we live as though it's not going to come? It's like you have to live as though there's going to be losses because they're going to happen. So how do you do that? You do that by just living very lean on the money that you get off of your real estate, and then just making sure that you have it to deploy when an opportunity presents itself. Other thing that I like about Aisha is that she does have that working income. It's very tempting to quit your 9-to-5 if you have the option to do so. Unless your business is flourishing, it's killing the game. But I think that it gives you kind of an added advantage to build a business on top of your 9-to-5. I talked about this last time I was on here, but that definitely does give you that float. So then you can invest for the sake of making good investments, not for the sake of this has to work because I got to pay my car note. This has to work because I got to do whatever. So there's added benefits. A lot of people think there's a disadvantage. When I was in college, one of my pro fights, he told me, he said, you can't build a business and work a job at the same time. And I thought that was true for the longest time until I realized, like, he didn't know what he was talking about. And you realize people don't know what they're talking about as they age. And you look at 10 years and they haven't accomplished anything. You're like, dang, I let that guy talk me out of my stuff. But anyway, yeah, so.
Yes, that's a bit, listen, well, that was a bar, y'all. Not, as he says, like, when people tell me, my uncle or my aunt owned a property and then it went bad and this happened and tenant horror stories. And I go, why are you taking advice from someone who did not succeed? Why are you taking advice from your uncle who had a rental property back in 1994 and lost it? Why are you taking advice from someone? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and also people get really personal about the properties. Like, my tenants don't take care of it. You're getting attached to the property more than you should. It's a numbers thing. This is just a numbers game. And like, if you're sitting here like they put a hole in the wall. Okay, well, we can get more drywall. That's not you know what I mean? Like, you're letting a hole in the wall stop you from long-term wealth. And that's the part that scares me. Like, the comments I'm hearing from some people, I'm like, what? You're not, I think people buy homes where they would live. Right. And they think they should find tenants that would think like they would think and treat the home like they would. And that's too much.
I think that's a good point because so many people, they're fed this line through bigger pockets. We're anti-bigger pockets over here. We use them for what they are, but bigger pockets. But the biggest thing is bigger pockets will tell you to invest where you would live. And I used to think that was true, but it doesn't even make any sense. Like,
numbers wise,
you invest where it makes sense. And that's true in a lot of ways. That's true because for me, it's not so much anti-BRRRR. It's what's the best place to invest. I'm a value investor. I'm always looking for value. And right now in the BRRRR market, I just shared an article and it was talking about how property values in Philadelphia are starting to plummet now. And so her analysis was that, hey, if the land values are going down, the property values are sure to follow. And so if you're betting on a high appreciation to exit your flip, you're going to be SOL, and the bank's not going to care because the bank they want their money. And so it's like you have to, it's economics and finance. A lot of people, they want to just play the real estate game and they don't realize that real estate is finance, and you have to understand finance. You have to understand numbers because you have to understand trends. You have to understand patterns. You have to understand history. You have to understand charts. You have to understand how interest rates affect that stuff. You have to understand so much more than just wood and nails. It's so much bigger than that because just look at it. We've continued to raise interest rates. And so how does that affect cap rates? How does that affect multifamily property values? How does that affect what you can even refinance at? Because all of those impacted. So you have to understand more than just Brandon Turner told me to buy, rehab, rent, and refinance. You have to really understand how all this stuff works together.
I mean, listen, I'm telling you, what's funny about her posting that article, we were all talking in a loop, me, her, Kiera, all these different people. And that's how you know who's like in the market and not, because I'm on like, I think maybe right now, 15 people's different buyers list. But what I started noticing all the past 3 months is the push of land lots out of Nashville, out of Florida, and out of, you guessed it, Philly. And there's also a couple markets in Maryland area I'm looking under. And it just was funny because I was like, well, this is a big red flag. This is a big red flag for me. If you're a developer, why are you selling your land lots all of a sudden? Why aren't you developing on them?
Another thing that's really important is we all talk about opportunity zones and the big push for opportunity zones. And what's important to understand is that in order for somebody to harvest their capital gains, they have to sell. When there's a lot of selling activity, prices go down. When prices go down, you see what's happening in the stock market. You see what's going to happen in bigger cities where people are going to take their property values that are overinflated and they're going to sell their property. They're going to take it and they're going to put it into the Midwest. And that's why I say it's a lot of economics and finance. When Aisha was out here, I told her, I said, hey, if you look all across America, you see that in these hot spots, property values aren't just high, they're too high. And then when you look in all these other areas that are forgotten, your Detroits, your Clevelands, your flyover states, where there's still like a strong city dynamic, Chicago, those places are undervalued. And so what you're going to see is you're going to see a shift out of those high value areas to the low out value areas. And the analogy that I gave her was, if you look at Southern California, if you look at how Los Angeles looks, you have these high value properties, and then you have South Central LA, which is the only value opportunity in Southern California. And so all the money is going there. That's the new stadiums going. They're going to be building new condos over there. They're going to be building new commercial property over there. And so what's going to happen is, if you were somebody who's saying, oh, Beverly Hills is hot, it's never been hotter. Oh, the Wilshire area, the downtown area is hot, it's never been hotter. And you're trying to flip or BRRRR in one of those areas, you're going to be one of the people that get stuck. You have to invest ahead of the game. You have to invest where people aren't looking, because if you invest where they already are, you're going to lose. And that's one of the downsides of listening to Bigger Pockets and taking your advice. And the Bigger Pockets is turned into CNBC, where if it's on the front page, it's too late.
Dude, that Forbes magazine article I did a video 2 years ago. Forbes magazine did the top 16 boom towns. And I literally went one by one by one by one. Each one of these towns had already been booming for 10 years. Like, you name it. It was Nashville, it was Chattanooga, it was Austin, it was Houston, it was Dallas. I'm like, if you're reading this Forbes magazine, 2016, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go there and invest now. Honey, you already behind. Like, Nashville was already, like, I keep telling the story over and over again. Our friends, they had 4 children, they had 4 boys. They were in Nashville, bought a house for $80K, cleaned it up, remodeled it, all that good stuff. That house, when they sold a year and a half ago, they sold it for $380, Charles, $380,000. Like, they are, I'm not gonna say they're poor teachers. I'm gonna say her husband works in academia. And I don't know if you know about academia, but unless you're tenured, sometimes y'all get paid low. If you don't have a lot of students, all these different things. So what ends up happening is the biggest selling point of their life was the house. That was the biggest, windfall money they'll ever receive, kind of how they looked at it in their life. And that's why when, sometimes people are like, well, stop telling people to buy homes, Erica. That's not the only way to get wealthy. Sometimes for some people it is. That's the only route they'll probably do.
Right. because it's like Jay Morrison says, you have to live somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like at that point, it's not even an investment really. It's what they call forced savings.
Yeah.
You're going to your real estate where you live is going to make somebody rich. Either you're going to make your landlord rich or you're going to make your family rich. And so it's really that it's that cut and dry. It's that black and white. It's not maybe my landlord will get rich if I rent from him. No, he's going to get rich. Maybe I'll get rich because one thing I always tell people when it comes to homeownership is the great thing about homeownership is the mortgage where you start isn't going to feel the same as the mortgage as you progress through your career. So let's say you buy a $300,000 house now and your mortgage is $1,800 and you and your wife make six figures now. But in 10 years, you and your wife make 250. That you still pay $2,000 a month though. So at that point you're chunking out your mortgage. At that point, you're just hustling it out. So it's a lot bigger than just where you live. And it's so funny because I think I know you're talking about who has the whole comment that something about real estate isn't the only way to get wealthy. I agree. I
agree, but I'm just like, this again is this egg and chicken argument where gentrification is coming in, it's pushing us out, their prices are raising. Okay, you had the opportunity to buy, you had the opportunity to invest. And if you're going to here's my problem with it. There's several articles that I don't know if you've seen them or not. They're like, well, Black people in 50 years, Black and Hispanic people have no money, no savings. What the article is really saying, and if you ever work for Edward Jones or any of these groups, they're trying really hard to get African Americans to invest in stocks and bonds and mutual funds and insurance. Even the wealthiest top 1% of African Americans usually invest in two things: real estate and their own business or businesses. Mm-hmm. This is where they hold most of their money. They put most of their cash here. They're business heavy or real estate heavy. Even the top 1%ers. And so if you don't have a business and you don't have real estate in your portfolio and you're African American or Hispanic, 9 times out of 10, you're not really throwing a ton in your 401k. You're not throwing a bunch of money into different options or different, peer-to-peer lending, all this stuff. You're not doing that. So that's part of what that whole hysteria was. And what's funny is I bring on Charles because I love giving the perspective of somebody from California, right? Where people will argue me down to the socks, Charles, about, I'm like, why you ain't buying that $120,000 home in Atlanta? Oh man, see, what, right here, right? I can live downtown for, $2,000 a month. And I go, but you're living downtown in a 500 square foot apartment for $2,000 a month, and you can own a own home, drive in 15 minutes to Atlanta, right, and your mortgage is $1,000. Just what I'm saying?
They don't really appreciate what a real commute is. I'll look at cities all the time, and I'll see, like, if you look at all the cities that outlie Atlanta, it's probably like you said, like a 15-20 minute commute in. And then if you look at even cities in Texas, like I'll look at like Austin, or I'll look at Dallas, or I'll look at Houston. And so each city kind of has like a belt line. So there's this circle of freeways.
We call it the donut.
Yeah, you have towns around those cities. And that's usually where you can find affordable property. So you're not in the thick of things, but you're close. And so that commute in a lot of ways is like 20, 30 miles, if that. In California, we're commuting maybe 60 to 70 miles just to get to affordable, reasonable housing. And so you guys are talking about the Inland Empire. And one of the things I wanted to say is a lot of people, they move to the Inland Empire because it's affordable, but it's also safe. And so if you're going to get affordable housing in Orange County or affordable housing in Los Angeles, you're going to be living next to Big Tukey and them. And yeah.
Big Jose, big Julio and them.
Right. So
I mean, listen, that's just, again, thank you again for Creel876 for the $2 super chat. Thank you for supporting the channel. Their question was, would you take a chance on Flint?
Somebody put out one of my quotes and I was like, dang, I said that. And the quote said that investing in the inner city and the hood isn't just lucrative. It's our duty, our obligation, our responsibility. So absolutely, because that's our job. It's our job to build up the communities that have people who look like us. Like, it just makes sense. But
half of Flint is white too, and I don't think people understand what Flint looks like either.
But the beauty of it is that it's also financially lucrative. I just had somebody on my podcast Roman. They own 3 rental properties outright, and they also own a commercial property. And if you look at the numbers, they bought it all in 15 grand, brick house, and they rent it out for $800 a month. If you do the math, you're going to get your money back in 2 years. What investment is going to allow you to get all your money back out of it in 2 years? Not many.
Y'all, I'm telling y'all, this is bars. Some of y'all asking me how y'all gonna retire in a year or 2 years, and I'm like, the return rate you need is like 20%, 25% on your money.
Right. So absolutely on Flint. I think that what's interesting is when a city gets a lot of press for it being struggle, it gets put on the map. And so a lot of people start looking at it and start trying to figure out if there's some opportunity there. The same thing is true with Detroit. The same thing is true with Cleveland. Not so much Cleveland. Cleveland, yes, when LeBron was there, but it's kind of being overlooked now. But Detroit is like on the map. People are looking at it. Warren Buffett invests there. Everybody's been investing tons of money there, and it's only going to continue to grow. So I think Flint is the same way. I just saw an article that said that a VC firm is investing like millions, if not billions, into Flint right now. And so you always have to kind of follow the money. I was reading this book and they were talking about like there are actual indexes that all they do is follow rich people, because they figure that if rich people are doing it, they have advisors, they have coaches, they have people who do the analysis for them. They've already done the work. It's kind of like buying property where Starbucks is. Starbucks already determined where the good place to buy is, and they have a lot of resources at their disposal. So all you have to do is follow Starbucks. All you have to do is follow.
Starbucks has a rule about where they're located at. It has to make a certain number of millions of dollars every certain number of days.
That's true.
So they've already done the research on the traffic, on the crossroads, all this stuff. Like even in my hometown of Fayetteville, Fort Bragg, they have 2 Starbucks on one road. One's by the mall, one's on the other side of the mall. People that don't want to go by the mall, I'm gonna stop here. People who are by the mall, you know what I mean? Soldiers are gonna, wrap one building and not wrap the other. But
you also have to look at where the big money's leaving. So it's not just to look at where they're going, but look at where they're leaving. Like, are people still investing in these parts of town, or are they taking their gains and running to the next undervalued opportunity? So it's like you have to do it. I always tell people you got to do a lot of reading. They say, what should I read? Read everything. Read every article, read every book, listen to every podcast, and absorb as much information as you can absorb. So then you can have so many tools at your disposal. Because for me, it's never just like, I read this book told me that. I've read 15 books, and I've taken 15 principles from all those books, merged them into one principle, and now let's do some business.
So I'm always torn on the book thing, because there was a 3-year part. I think I've told you this. I have like 400 books at my mom's house, and she's like, come get your books out of here, yo. And then I've got like 300 books here in my apartment and another 200 books somewhere. So I've read like hardcore. There was a 3-year period in my life where I was just reading. So when I'm quoting stuff on the show, people are like, what book is that? Who knows? Like, I read so many. But the thing of it is as I was reading, I was taking action. Like, try a little. Same thing with prime example. I took the VidCon course, Vid Summit course, and it teaches you how to improve your YouTube channel. Well, I've already tried, like, I only watched 5 of the 56 videos, already trying techniques. It's already improving tenfold, right? I'm already getting commentary and conversations with bigger up YouTubers who are like, hey, I saw you popped up in my algorithm. I'm like, really? Like, just now? They're like, yeah, you did. I'm like, awesome. So it's like, I want you guys reading, but also implementing, like the little things you can do, implement, right? Like, even if it's just changing your bank account or putting a certain amount of money away, it's little things. So I'm gonna read some of y'all comments. I see y'all in here. I'm not ignoring y'all. So we have, what's up, Kentucky, California, Memphis, Tennessee. We got some Fort Lauderdale in the building. Santa Clara, California. Where's that at? Charleston, South Carolina.
That's up near San Francisco.
Okay, near San Francisco. Okay, because I have some questions on Oakland. I know Andre Hatchett was in the comment section. Mm-hmm. Big brother in life. He says a lot of Black people in the DMV area lost their houses in the last recession, especially PG County, because it was supposed to be the wealthiest Black county. Now, big brother in life, I will say this also. During that era, there were several articles on people who had been in their house a whole year not making mortgage payments. So for me, if you've been in your house a whole year not making mortgage payments and your income and financial life hasn't turned around, There were more problems there than just the foreclosure. Do you know what I'm saying? If that makes sense, Charles.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that for me, please?
Charles is getting all the Texas. I was saying in PG County, which was it was a really hot market for wealthy Black people to move to, or people just moving to better schools, better communities in Maryland. But there were several articles on the flip side that were saying they were showing case by case of people who lived in their home a whole year, hadn't made any mortgage payments, and we kept trying to get the programs to help them. And my whole argument is, if you've been in a house a whole year, no mortgage payments, rent's your biggest thing out your pocket. You should have your life turned back around in a year, or a second strategy for that. Do you see what I'm saying?
I think that during that time, people were sold this idea that prices were only going to go up, that the economy was only doing better. So they had no fear. They were living by the seat of their pants. There was a lot of spending going on. Mm-hmm. I know families that were just living it up. People were buying very nice, high-end luxury cars, Rolexes, Louis Vuitton this, Louis Vuitton that. It was very high times. Nobody expected that to come.
The spinners on the cars.
And so I feel like looking forward, because it's very tough to say, oh, well, they should have done this, they should have done that. That's why I try to project going forward. I think it's so key to have multiple sources of income, whether it be a business, whether it be real estate, whether it be stocks, whether it be affiliate marketing, all the things that you could be doing, coaching, writing a book. You have to just beef up your financial statement. And the cool thing about beefing up a financial statement is you also are forced to reduce your liabilities. And so if you have a car, it would make sense to pay off that car, keep that car. It would make sense to buy it in cash. It will make sense to figure out a way to kind of become more solid financially, instead of just looking as though you're solid financially. So I think that one of the issues that happened there is people lost jobs. They didn't have, most of them were, if you're living in PG County, you likely work in DC. You likely work for the federal government. And when the federal government downsizes, then you're going to lose your job. So what's unfortunate about that is that also what happens during an economy like that is people have less disposable income to support your business, which means that a Shopify store now is going to do a lot better than it would do when people have no money. It's easier to start a business now because people have more money. People have more disposable income to buy your course, buy your book, buy your shirts, buy your this, buy your that. And so we have to always, when I had this conversation with Khalil said he doesn't plan for this year. He's planning years out. And so you have to plan your finances years out. You can't plan your finances for the next paycheck. You can't plan your finances for the next day. You have to look at, okay, worst case scenario. Always plan for the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, this flip doesn't go well. What is my other exit strategy? And that's one of the points I wanted to make about this BRRRR process is the savvy investor is going to get through it. Even if the BRRRR is not available, the savvy investor is going to find a way to keep that deal alive. And that's what Brandon Turner did. He was forced. He didn't just like sit down one day and say, hey, I'm going to just refinance this out. He was up late at night, the last day before the loan was due, and he was like, I'll just refinance it. And I'll get my dad on the loan. I'll go do this. And I think that was one of the really dope points that Kiara made. I was listening to her, and it's something I always try to tell people is if you want to learn how to do something, the best way to really get that in-depth knowledge is hands-on experience, because you will never look at a roof estimate the same as check for a roof. It's ingrained in your mind. I know how much it costs to put carpet in the house now. I know how much it costs to repair a porch now. I know how much it costs to repair a back wall now. I know how much it costs to knock down a garage because I've had to write the check. And so you can read as many books, you can talk to as many contractors, but when you've actually had to write the check, when you've actually had to stay up late at night trying to stress over how you're going to get it done, that stuff locks in that knowledge, and that knowledge becomes skills, and that skills becomes more paper.
Facts on facts on facts. That was bars on bars. Here's the thing. There's several things you said that I want to hit on. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go to this one first. The reason earlier I kept quoting, and in several videos I quote $6,000 for a kitchen and bathroom in North Carolina. That's literally for certain. When you're talking about a ranch style brick house, 1980s, early, like barely 1990s, that is the standard. Like by the time they come in, a simple gut, redo the bathroom, vanity, tub, it's like $6,000, like one bathroom. And then if you do the kitchen, usually it's a very simple pull out, make sure there's no water damage. It's a $6,000 kitchen. And people are like, oh, that's crazy, Erica. I'm like, I just know that marketplace. I've seen my aunt get her whole kitchen done, seen my mom get her whole kitchen done. I've seen, we have 3 different rentals that got brand new kitchens. Like the math is there. And right. It's easy to talk about, oh, this book told me it was gonna be this. You gotta see it and you gotta know your market, right? So that's why I'm a big proponent of turnkeys. If you're just starting out, like if you're trying to go across country and invest in a whole new city and you're not in a group like Todd Capital or Black Sea Fund Group or some kind of group situation, a turnkey might work for you just to get that A under your belt. And then now you have more knowledge of that area, like how much things cost in that area. And that was a big push why I push people for that. Another thing you said that I keep trying to bring up, and I think people get bored when I say it, financial statements and financial statements. And I even say, take it one step further. Go pull a blank 1040 EZ, right? Or a 1048. If you look on that first part where it says income, it'll talk about farm income. It'll talk about rental income. It'll name all the different ways you can get income. But most people only do what? Have the job income, right? It even has a section on there for child support and alimony, y'all. I mean, like it gets down to the nitty gritty. And like, if you think about someone else is in a position to fill out all these boxes, every single box. And like, even the notes, like one year, what I learned the hard way when I was investing in penny stocks and lost that $4,000 in college, I had to print off that form from E-Trade. Now, you know, I was embarrassed. And literally the CPA was like, what are you doing? What happened, right? I'm like, don't try to embarrass me, sir. Don't try to embarrass me. But every year when I do that, like lending club, I had to print off, I think it was 20 sheets of paper of notes, you know, just notes on notes on notes, these small notes. And so adding them to your taxes, you know, people don't realize like there's a million ways to make money. If you just look at the forms, they're even telling you the ways to do it. Like your 1040 tell you right there, all the ways you can bring in income. So again, I'll try to find a way that me and Charles can talk about a financial statement that's like exciting, but many people, their eyes glaze over like, oh, financial statement, Erica. I'm like, this is exciting stuff.
That's one of the things that Warren Buffett did when he was younger. He started doing his own taxes, and he attributes that to him being more wealth conscious, because a lot of taxes is tax planning. Mm-hmm. And we don't talk about this enough, and I'm going to do a podcast episode on this, is planning your year at the front to maximize your tax savings and your tax benefits. So if you're doing a deal, you want to make sure you can get the most tax credits by investing in maybe in a low income area, or investing in a new market tax credit zone, or investing in a opportunity zone if you have access to capital gains. And so I think that that's one thing we need to start doing more, is being more proactive about our taxes and less reactive at the end of the year, saying, this is what I did. It's like, what should you be like? Should you receive your income via 1099 as opposed to via W-2? Should you structure this as consulting income instead of wage income? There's so many things you can do that are strategic that are going to make you so much more money just on the taxes.
Facts on facts. Sky Investments. There's a couple of y'all questions. I'm just skipping y'all. I just like having the conversation be light and heavy, right? So Sky Investments said, how do you feel about flipping new construction versus existing? And I'm gonna give you my take on it here. After hanging out with the Meeks out of Houston, they love land lots. They love it because it's an opportunity to build from the ground up. They have clear numbers, clear thing. Their schedules, you can get approved. Also, after talking to Scotty Smith in Dallas, like this ground up construction thing is like, woo, right? Like, and not making fun of it, but like literally, if you go to houseplans.com, and I know who does it because I get emails from some of y'all. There were 3 people, Charles. The first thing they said is like, girl, did you know that house plan cost $1,000? I said, yes, this is literally an architectural plan of a house. This is literally a layout. You can take this to the bank and say, this is what I'm getting built. And they will base your numbers off this document, off these documents and these plans. And you can give it to a GC and they can actually build the house up from the ground from it. So yes, houseplans.com is a key thing. But you guys have to realize, if you didn't go through houseplans.com, you'd be paying an actual company probably $5,000 to do it, what you're getting for $1,000. So that's the power of the internet. But this is what Meek said, and this is also what Scotty said. Once you get in there, The difference of them for new construction versus existing, you're getting in there, it's like a puzzle. You're opening walls, you're opening doors, you're getting, oh, that's a new cost. Oh, wait, something's wrong over there. Oh, electrical's messed up. Oh, somebody took some copper wiring. Oh, I gotta go over here. New, you ground up. Right. That's some of the thoughts on it, but go ahead and you give me your thoughts on it.
So I read Sky's response. Hold on. Sky asked the question, and he said, what I told him is look at the numbers. I'm going to expand on that. And he said that he's from New York. He has holdings in Florida, but he's considering doing new construction instead of waiting for rents to drip it over the year. And I think that that's probably one of the best things you can do is to let the numbers drive your solution. Because I didn't go Midwest. I didn't go away from ultra low cap rates because I just had a feeling. The numbers told me so. We just talked about it. You can cash out a house in 2 years versus you just carrying a note and paying the bank for 15 years. And then after you pay them for 15 years, maybe you can start knocking down the principal. Well, like that's 2 years, you pay off the principal in 2 years, or you pay it off over 30 years. It doesn't even make any sense. It's a numbers game. But the next thing I wrote down is that, like you said, you know what's there. If you're building it from the ground up, you don't have to worry about, are you going to have to replace all the electrical? It's not a yes or no question. It's just like, yeah, we know we're going in there to replace the electrical. We know we're going in there to replace all the plumbing or to install new plumbing. And so it's less of a guessing game. It's more of a strategy game. And you build all that into the beginning. I would love to get into new construction. That's kind of what I want to do. I always tell people, like, how I start isn't how I want to end up. We started out buying small single family homes. The goal is, the sky is the limit. The goal is,
oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, we build whatever we want to build.
Well, you know what? I was about to say you were with us, but you weren't. I just realized that on the Detroit True. We'll talk about this off camera, but essentially there's some hookup opportunities with lumber and supplies over here in Houston. So if you want to fly out and find out some more deeds, or we'll talk about it offline. But anyway, this is why I'm going to go to this question next. Esau said, New Orleans inner city shell homes selling like crazy. Property owners are telling prospective buyers to buy as is or not at all. No appraisal. I'm going to New Orleans. I'm actually supposed to drive like 2 days from now. I didn't know if I want to do Christmas there or do New Year's there. But anyway, I'm going to look at a couple condos because of the amount of time I'm going to be in New Orleans versus the price I'm paying. Like, I literally added up all 5 trips, hotel costs for the week each time I'm going to be there. It was outrageous. It was like, oh my God, if I don't split this with Asia or a couple of different people when I go on these trips, I've literally put like 10 grand into the city. That's crazy. I get a condo. Right. That's ridiculous, right? So I've seen that. I've been researching realtor.com. I've been researching a lot of areas because, I mean, at the end of the day, there's still millions upon millions of dollars slotted for New Orleans. It just like anything, without anything that comes with the government saying, hey, we put millions of dollars there, like technically, legally, New Orleans, every child, man, woman, and child that was affected by Katrina is allotted like $250,000. But the hoops you had to jump through to qualify and get approved and show you lived here at this location and you had a piece of mail and your driver's license be accurate. There were a lot of people that were in halfway houses in different places who couldn't get any money. They couldn't prove they were living in New Orleans at the time of Katrina. I mean, there's countless stories in Houston. You can ask people in Houston who are like, I haven't been back. They did me wrong. So the lesson there is money's still going to be put into that city for years to come because it's still slotted. Y'all make sure y'all see Charles Billy come to Todd Capital shirt. Stephen Lott. Best lesson I've ever got was about BRRRR is really about control of bank deposits and renters' paycheck. OPM. W-2/business income pumped into rental, then reinvest at least 40%. So that's a loaded statement. Would you like to tackle it, or it's up to you?
I'm not sure I really understand the question, actually.
Stephen basically said the best lesson he got was the control of his bank deposits and renters' paychecks, OPM. Essentially, as they were paying him, it made it look like, when he put his W-2 plus the renter income in together, it made it look bad. Stephen, message us again. Retype that in for me. Okay. Mr. Shelley said, yes, so true. Can find affordable housing 15 to 30 minutes on the outskirts of ATL. I mean, to me, let's be really honest, the donut effect in Atlanta is bananas. Like, again, go ahead.
And they're brand new homes. Like, I was in Atlanta in like August, and they were building new homes from like the low 100s. I'd never seen it in my life.
180s.
Yeah.
180s for townhouses.
And I was telling my dad, I was like, this is crazy. Like, why is this so affordable? And they can't grasp it. I guess if it's your reality, you don't really appreciate it. But it's also a different culture there. It's definitely heavy car centered. So people it's kind of like Detroit. How the homes are very expensive, but you'll see a lot of people with nice cars. So it's like they live in a cheap home, but their excess money goes towards putting rims on their car.
Well, actually, the funny thing about Atlanta is if you talk to somebody and be like, hey, this house is 180, they're like, man, back in the day, I could get that house for 120. I'm not paying that. And it's such an entitlement. It's a living in the past. Like, I keep having this argument, and I think and there's 105 of y'all here, so make sure y'all hit the like buttons. I keep having this argument. If any of you are from Atlanta area in the comments, put a 1 in the comment section so we know who you are. But there is this kind of reactive instead of proactive. It's the same thing here in Austin, where people are like, I used to live over there and it was $80,000. Now it's $400,000. That's crazy. I'm not going to pay those prices. Okay, but you are. You're either going to rent or you're going to own. Like, even in the neighborhood where I was living, where we were living in the home. I don't know if you saw the old videos, and literally the house, we got it at 280. She sold it for 400,000 a year and a half later. And when you talk to the other neighbors that are retired, Black people, retired engineers, I'm like, hey, well, y'all could sell. This house been paid off for years. Get you 400,000 in your pocket and go on and live a great retirement. And they go, first thing out of their mouth, where are we going to live next, though? Where are we going to go after that? And I go, okay, I see what you're saying. But at that point, that again tells you people don't have a grasp on, I could take this equity and go invest in other rentals and still live nice in Austin.
Yeah.
So.
And even if you don't sell it, you can still tap the equity. Like, just because, like, there's multiple ways to get the equity out of your house. You can refi, or you can do a HELOC, and most people recommend the HELOC. You can get a loan using your property as collateral. The equity in your property is collateral. Get a lot of credit using your property as collateral. That's not necessarily a HELOC. And I think that people have to start thinking strategically when it comes to their finances. A lot of people really, like they say, they can't recognize an opportunity unless it's attached to a paycheck. So I think that kind of circling back to BRRRR, and just even if you're buying property right now, you have to do it and hedge yourself. You have to protect yourself. It's like you wouldn't buy a car without insurance. You wouldn't live your life without insurance. So why do people invest and buy homes without insurance? You have to protect your rental properties with insurance. You have to protect your stocks with insurance. You have to protect everything with insurance. People will put insurance on their cell phones, but they won't put insurance on their investments. And so you're saying, like, what's insurance on your investment look like? So you have put options. You have different options to protect your stocks from going down. But what I consider insurance for real estate, whether you're a BRRRR investor, whether you're a long-term buy and hold investor, whether you are a flipper, is cash. Cash is your insurance as a real estate investor. Cash or access to credit. Cash or access to credit, but you have to have money for so many different reasons. Because let's just say right now we're in a market where I think, like, I saw 56% people are renters, and in some states it's like 62%, if not higher. That's not normal. And so what happens when it becomes normal? What happens when we have more rental property, when we have more actual homeowners? You're going to have a lot of people owning homes that nobody wants to rent anymore. And so you have to figure out what your strategy is going to look like. Because, I mean, let's say they move out and then you have a vacant that you can't fill, or you have a vacant that in order to fill, you have to continue to decrease the rents. The only way that you can offset that difference is by having cash. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck. You're going to lose your property. It's what happened to people in the past. The last time we had a downturn, there were people who had multiple properties and they couldn't afford the mortgages. It wasn't just people's personal residence that they lost. People were buying 3, 4, 5 homes at a time, thinking people were either going to rent them or they were going to just sell them for more money later. And they couldn't afford the mortgages, and that's why they lost them. And so that's why I say it's important to know economics and know finance, because you have to know what happened last time so you can strategize how not to let that happen to you again. So that's kind of my whole take on where we are right now. Because when you see it, everybody's buying multifamily, everybody's loading up on units. And whenever I see everybody doing something, that's when I get worried. When I see people talking about, I have 4,000, 5,000. I was listening to Best Ever Real Estate Investing podcast. And the host, I forget his name. I should know his name. The last time I listened to his show, I think he owned like 200 units. He had done like 2 syndications, and now he's done 21 syndications. The main selling proposition for syndications is usually that you're going to get a better return investing in multifamily than you're going to get putting into your savings account. That's not going to be true for much longer. So then what's going to happen? People are going to want to pull their money out so they can just put it in a safer place. They're not going to want to pay you all your fees. And so they're saying, hey, I can get 5 to 6 in my savings. I can get 5 to 6 in my CD. Why do I need you anymore?
So there's 2 different questions I was going to tackle, but I have to do this. I'm going to do a little mini rant. Terrence gave us kind of a passive aggressive thing, and I'm going to say something. So prepare yourself. All these Black, powerful, smart people in finance cannot find a workable deal for poor and disenfranchised people so we can have minority homeowners. Any suggestion? Well, Terrence, that sounds to me like scarcity mentality, what you just did. It sounds like you kind of went passive aggressive. And I'm going to put it to you this way. I'm going to be nice. But again, you have somebody already in the comment section said PG County gave a lot of homeowners incentives. Same thing here in Austin, same thing in Killeen, Round Rock. All these places gave people, they're literally giving people 0%, like no money down closing costs. Like there are several women I can tell you right now who got a check at their closings here in Texas. Not put money in, got a check. And the economy has been bent over backwards, making sure that people can get into affordable housing. But what does that also require? It requires those poor and disenfranchised people to step up to the plate so that they can qualify. Like, again, I was talking to a woman, my friend was saying, can I help this woman with credit repair? Well, I ended up talking to her on the phone and she wanted to buy a house. And then when she said what prices she wanted for the houses, Todd, I kid you not, she was saying, yeah, I want something for 150 in Austin. And every realtor was like, honey, that was 7 years ago. Like, the only 150 you're going to get is going to be in Manor and Elgin, and that's like 15 minutes out. And she said, well, I don't have a car. Well, that's not, again, you're wanting a house for a price that's not in this area. So that means 1 or 2 things. You're going to have to drive 20 minutes to Elgin or Manor or what? You know what I'm saying? Like, again, people are waiting too late. It's a reactive thing. There's so many right now. I'm going to go into it. I'm sorry. I have to finish. I don't want to light people up, but I'm like, here in Austin for the past freaking 7 years, they've been doing homeowners down payment assistance for $7,000. And it was created for everybody on Section 8, everybody on government assistance. It wasn't created for your average Austinite. But what ended up happening is they kept sending out flyers and trying knocking on doors and trying to convince all these people off Section 8 because it was cheaper for the government to give you money for a house. And the numbers show that once you got out of Section 8 or any project and you actually owned your own home, the chances of you coming back were like 11%. It was like almost nothing. Like you were like, I'm in my house, peace out. This is better. And people don't show up, period. Year after year, they don't show up. You know, out of thousands of people who qualify, like 20 show up or 100 at most show up or 200 show up and don't finish. I think Mentor Shelley or somebody else said they went to a program, people didn't finish there either. Somebody else went to a grant program and people didn't want to finish 3 or 4 lessons talking about financial education so they could get free money to close on a house. Right. So again, when we keep having this, we keep trying to make everything in our society for the lowest common denominator person. That's not how it works. Mm-hmm. It's not how it works. And now in Austin, the down payment program is $15,000. And I can tell you when I went 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, just to see what the fuss was about, because you could make $100,000 and still qualify a year and qualify. Literally, I was in there and it was nothing but Asian foreign exchange students and people who were recently new refugees to Austin. Like we had taken refugees, they lived in Section 8 and they lived in the projects and they were like, you'll help me buy a home in America? And they were there. But broken English there.
I have 2 points to make. The first is that it's like you said, it's not enough for intelligent African American people to do our part. People have to be productive, and so they have to get out. They have to work. They have to improve their community. They have to clean up their community. They can't throw trash on the ground. They can't just dump stuff on your front lawn. We have properties. We have one property in particular in Detroit that we just bought at auction, and I drove by it when I was there like last week, and somebody put their mattress on the front lawn, and then somebody else decided they were just going to park next to the lot, like park right in the driveway. And I was just like, why would you do that? So part of me is thinking about putting together a program that actually like hires high school students or local teens to just pick up the trash on the side of the road for the entire block. Like, hey, we'll pay you however much money a month to just pick up the trash on the entire block, make the block look great again, and then figure out a way to create some sort of an HOA for that entire block to make sure all the lawns are clean, all the lawns are manicured, all the lawns look good, and improve the community that way. The reason why I like Detroit is because it gives me the opportunity to literally create a community, not buy one house in the community, not buy a few homes scattered throughout. Like, we can literally buy the community. And so last time I was out there, I was just driving up and down the road, taking down names and numbers of homes on the same block. Like, I don't even want the zip code. I want the street, because then we can start just making that one street good and then move over to the next street. And from there on, the next thing I was going to say is, you were mentioning, I always lose my train of thought when I start expanding on ideas. We were talking about, it'll come back to me.
It's okay. There's a lot here. When you guys give me, I love these shows because it's a feedback thing. It's almost like a radio show. In order for this to go smooth, you got to ask the questions, but you also got to be able to take some of the answers I'm going to give, because some of y'all might not like the answers. Okay, so that's how this works. But somebody said, what are my thoughts on investing in Jacksonville, Orlando? Well, Jacksonville, Orlando been investing haven for years, right? Like, again, I hate to say it this way, but a lot of elder people from New York are doing a halfback system now. They're going to North Carolina, South Carolina. They're not going all the way to Florida. So we call them halfback, because they, it's closer for their kids, it's closer for their family. If they don't have a bunch of friends retiring in Florida anymore because of inflation or cost of living, well, then they go somewhere where it's still cheap. Again, my mom has neighbors in that same neighborhood of hers she's in. They've been renting the same house for 15 years from New York. And now the husband's like, well, maybe we'll go back to New York. The wife's like, we've been here 15 years. Like, why would we leave here and go, because they haven't invested. They haven't bought a house. So they're like, we've been renting, and to be closer to their kids. And so I just think people move around, but Jacksonville, Florida, been an investment spot. Like, I bought on Dr. Kenyon Meadows. I bought Hood Estates. You see me sharing all their stuff. They own like maybe 50, 60 rentals in Jacksonville or something at this point. So,
but why is, for 2 points again, I'm going to say the points and then expand on them. The first is that the market that pops is the market that you make pop. The second is that the way to find out if a place to invest is a good place to invest is to work the numbers. You should be analyzing deals. If you want to invest in real estate, you have to analyze deals. Analyze 75 to 100 deals. You have to analyze deals, because if you don't know what a deal looks like, you're going to get taken advantage of. Mm-hmm. Somebody out there is going to take advantage of you, and they won't even care, because a lot of real estate, especially in these markets like that, it's just a bunch of people taking advantage of each other. Unfortunately, if you go to Detroit, if you go to some of these like lower income, because they're desperate. A lot of these people, they have no economy. You are their economy. Out-of-state investors are their economy. So
turnkey rentals are their economy.
So
renter people coming to retire there is their economy.
I think that the tip is, if you're asking if a market is good, you need to start working it through the ratios. And so a lot of people will tell you the 70% rule. So basically, your offer shouldn't be more than 70% of the ARV less the repair costs. And so every single property that you see, you need to take what that market price is. You need to look at what it's going to be worth if it's fixed up, what a brand new fixed up home looks like, that what's that's an actual comp, same square footage, same number of bedrooms, same number of bathrooms, same outside brick, all that stuff. And then you need to multiply that ARV times 0.7. The subtractors you're going to need to repair that number. and that's going to give you what the most you can pay for that house, and do it for 100 homes in that same zip code. And that's going to give you the knowledge. It's going to also allow you to be more credible when you start talking to people, because you know what stuff costs. So people, you can't run from the work. At some point in time, you got to do the work. But what you don't realize is the work is what makes you great. The work is what gives you skills. The work is what gives you an advantage. If you are going to arm wrestle with somebody, are you going to bet on? You're going to bet on the guy who's been doing nothing but curls doing 100 curls, or the guy who's been thinking about doing curls, who's been asking which person, are these the best exercise I should be doing? Is this the best weight that I should be lifting? What's the best diet? No, you're going to get further by doing curls and realizing, dang, maybe if I do curls this way, I'll get a bigger muscle. Like, you're going to learn what's best by lifting the weight, not by thinking about lifting the weight or even reading the book about lifting the weight. I read because it informs my action. I don't read as a replacement for action. I listen to podcasts because it gives me information on what action to take, not because it makes me feel good. Everything that I've done this year has come from a book. It's been Choose Yourself, that book, the 10X Rule, that book, all of Gary Vee's books, Eric Thomas books. Just like giving, I give value. I give value to away, and value comes back to me. But what's great is by me giving value, my community increases in value. And a more valuable community can do bigger business with me. So it's you got to give. You got to elevate people.
The funny thing I talk about is there was a 3-year period I was reading books, and then I took a bunch of action. And then when I started hitting my head on the ceiling of action, I did what? I bought the Vid Summit, because higher, bigger level YouTubers were like, I bought Vid Summit and I took the techniques in there and used them. I'm like, you know what? You're right. If I'm going to say this is my platform, I get hundreds of thousands of dollars from, I need to be serious about it. I need to take my craft serious. And so you'll notice as you go into a marketplace, as you invest, you'll go, I don't know something and I'm hitting my head on a level. So either you'll start reading or you'll start finding mentors. That's usually what happens. Again, Dirk Jackson said the Rust Belt is where the deals are, but even some of y'all are putting your cities and states in. This is why I do this. 1, so I can get an idea if I ever want to do live meetups, but 2, so I can literally earlier show, I don't know if you were there or how long you were there. I was just naming off cities around their cities because I'm a military kid. I'm a big traveler. I used to drive a lot. And that's all I was like, I know your state. How do I know your state better than you?
I'm impressed by that.
A weird military kid driving highways for a while. So Goose Creek, Garcia Simpson said Goose Creek. I can tell you right now, Goose Creek, Somerville, all the little towns around North Charleston. You know, I wouldn't personally invest in parts of North Charleston. I would go Somerville. I'd go a little bit further out. $70K gets you a great house. It's going to rent for $900 to $1,000. Now closer to $800, but you're going to have consistent rents there because it's a warm climate. People want to be there. And guess what? You're going to find wholesale deals because of what? Elderly people or flooding or hurricanes. Yeah. You know, I literally told, you know, Anita is in that near that area, and she literally I told her, hey, this is what I'm looking for. She can find that property and be done with it, right? She doesn't have to make a whole new list. She just find what you're looking for. So again, for people saying, oh, the Rust Belt's where the deals are, the deals can be in your backyard. I really strongly suggest you go on realtor.com for the next 2 days and push 20 miles out.
Right. There are sellers in every market. And I think that Anita said is you're not looking for a market, you're looking for a problem. You're looking for distress. People have distress all over the place. Maybe not so much in Orange County, but they might have distress in Santa Ana. That's in California. They might have distress in, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but they might have distress in Compton, Watts, all those areas. And I think that that's just a good way to invest, period. Good investors find distress. Good investors, that's how they buy deals. They're not looking for what's on the retail market. That's what, I don't know, whatever. That's what fake investors do. Like if you're in business, you're going to buy wholesale. What would Walmart look like going to another Walmart, buying their product for Walmart prices and then trying to sell it to you for Walmart prices? That's silly. That's what retail investors do. That's what people do when they look on LoopNet. That's what people do when they look on the MLS. That's what people do. You are buying at the end of the food chain. Everybody else is eating off of that deal. You are the last person to get a bite, and hopefully they're going to give you a good bite. But usually, that sometimes these wholesalers they will kill a deal. I love wholesalers. I love certain wholesalers.
Yeah, you gotta like the numbers have to make sense again. In any situation, the numbers have to make sense. But my whole point of using realtor.com is people getting a basis number.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like they go on there and they don't know. Erica, we're somewhere cheap. Like I literally, when y'all were naming off cities and states, I was laughing. I was literally like, you know how long I've been on freaking realtor.com and in Facebook marketplace groups, in bigger pockets, talking to people, like just literally, if you have to take advantage of this internet we live in.
Yeah.
And as much crap as I talk about bigger pockets, one of the number one things I tell y'all to do on here, make sure you have a LinkedIn profile. 2, go on bigger pockets, blow up everybody in your city. If you're really serious, like Erica, I need properties. Go up on bigger pockets, hit everybody up in the forums that's in your city. There are people on there who are moving and shaking and doing things, but you got to be moving and shaking and doing things too. You can't be sitting here like, oh, okay, I'm gonna think about it. Okay, I'm gonna think about it, and then 3 months later, you're still thinking about it.
Right. Yeah, the beauty of the realtor.com, Trulia, Redfin, all those things is you can just type in the name of the market that you're interested in, and you can immediately look at the inventory that's on the market. You can see the different prices, you can see the condition of the properties, you can see what the price history has been, because a lot of times they'll show you a chart at the bottom that's going to show you what the property was priced at in 2008, 2010, 2012. So it kind of is a cheat code in that you don't have to call a realtor. You can literally just type in wherever you want to look. I do it all the time, even when I'm looking for like dream houses. Like I'll say, oh, Newport Beach, let's see what's out there for no limit on the price. I'm looking at $40 million homes. But the same thing is true for real estate. And just because you start analyzing properties that way, just because you start looking for properties there, doesn't mean you're going to end up there. You might look at all the deals on Zillow and say, this sucks. I don't like any of these. Let me go find a better site. Or because a lot of times it doesn't matter where you find it, an offer is an offer is an offer, and what you can pay for it is what you can pay for it. Just because it says a market price doesn't mean that's what you should pay for. That's just
your real estate agent should be arguing for you to pay less.
Right.
Like, you know, even if you found it on MLS, they should be arguing for you. But like, here's something, a little technique. This is how I spend like an hour to 2 hours in the morning, like kind of scanning certain articles that they're already in my feed. Like I can go on austinrealtor.com right now in Austin and see the down arrow trend on several properties and go, I'm not going to pay full price. The arrow's downtrend, offer less. And if they don't like it, who cares, right? So key fact on that. Okay, so 2 things. 843 area code. Yeah, she said there's lots of homes that are $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. That's right. Dirk Jackson said I just closed on a house today for $30K. Should run for $600 to $700 a month. And that's South Carolina, y'all. I'm telling you. Hold on, let me see.
Just stack the cash.
There was another one I want to go to. Did I miss it? Hold on. Hold on, y'all. Dang it. Anyway, well, here's my thing. When we're talking about syndication in here in the comment section, let me just make this very clear. I'm in apartment investing groups. The big lump sum money that I use to get into certain groups, like the minimums are 100,000, and to get into it to get you your 1% position. The smaller groups, like Lane, that I've been recommending y'all, $50,000. So again, I'm in 2 groups. I've only gotten 1 deal. If that gives you any idea. And I didn't have the big money. I had the littler money. Okay. But to give you an idea, when people talk about apartment investing, it's sexy. You know, Grant Cardone says, get an apartment investing. Are you bringing $100,000 to some of these syndication deals? That's literally the mark. Now, Grant Cardone's made it so that unaccredited investors can come in. But even in his staff, Jared Glant, I think Jared Glant's first big lump sum was $100,000. He didn't even let Jared, the guy that works for him, do less than $100,000. So are there some groups that let you do $50,000, $20,000? I've seen it, but it has to be a smaller deal. It has to be like one of the deals they just did. Like a group of mine is doing a small deal in Birmingham. It's like 90 units. It's a B, it's a C really. And they're going to do some value add. And they're like, hey, we just want to finish closing it really quickly and move on. So they've allowed some 40,000 positions to come in. But again, you have to be a sophisticated investor. You can't be unknowledgeable. You can't be unaccredited and unsophisticated. That's a dangerous combination. So again, I know people love what Grant Cardone is saying about, you know, apartments, get you multiple doors, get you some knowledge in the marketplace. People don't Again, these numbers, I want y'all to be realistic. That's all. What else? Who else? Who else? Yeah, if y'all have any questions about taxes, hit up Todd Capital. Garcia Simpson, yeah, the NACA program. See, here's the problem. That's what I meant to ask Kendra. Dang it. So Kendra's in the USDA. Kendra came on and she was talking about she went to A&T and she took agricultural economics, went to school absolutely free. Been working for USDA, getting fat checks ever since, right? But the NACA program, it's another government program that people in all these credit repair groups have been like, NACA, we have to do NACA because it's a 0% interest on home loans, or it's like no money down. And here's the thing, some people have been working with NACA for 6, 7, 8 months to get in that house. And you could have been in that time frame stacking that cash to be able to afford a 3.5% down payment and keep it moving.
Right.
So again, on average, you're gonna spend, like, first time home buyer in some of these programs, you're gonna be about 45 days. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. About 45 days, you know, depending on the program. 45 to 60.
I think that it's always a good strategy to save up that down payment. And then if you happen to fall into a program, that's great. But if you don't, at least you have the money. You don't want to bank on getting that program because you might not get it. So you want to do everything that you can to get into it. And then if you do get a windfall, if you do get some assistance, then that's just icing on the cake. Then you can use your extra money as an emergency fund. But you don't want to be banking on a 0% down payment to get into a property.
Yeah, they're taking their time about doing your paperwork. And I've literally seen people give up where they're like, I did all this, I did that. Now they're running me back and forth and they're forgetting. Like, NACA is one of the worst ran. I want to bring Kendra back on to talk about it, but NACA is one of the worst ran programs I've ever seen in my life. The worst. We've had so many real estate agents go, oh, you want to work at NACA? No, peace out. Like, that's why they have certain mortgage brokers and certain people who deal with certain programs, because they're like, oh, I can wait. Because honestly, if you know anything about real estate, it's like, you got to have some listings, you got to have some, you know, seller appointments. It's almost a game of like, you'd rather have a bunch of listings because at some point it's like it's going to hit, right? At some point it's going to hit, and the seller's appointments is just like you pushing. The listings are the bread and butter, but the sellers, listen. All right, Andre Hatchett. I give free workshops every year on down payment grants. Free money. 20% of people follow through, if that. Takes work. I don't want to curse. Too late. But yeah, I can believe that. I can totally believe that. So if y'all want free down payment assistant programs, hit up Andre. Even my friend that I bought on, Kareem Baldwin in New York. He's sitting there. He's got access to hundreds of programs. He's a mortgage broker. And some of y'all will call him and can't even follow through on getting your credit reports to him. I mean, come on, baby. This is like your life. Do you want it? So any other questions y'all have in here? I don't want to keep Todd up all night. Any other hot topics you see on Bigger Pockets or anywhere that you think you want to address while you're here? Feel free, like, be yourself.
I think one of the things that I've always said is that their misinformation and their, I'm not sure the proper way to say, it's not misguidance. They're basically, a lot of what they promote on there creates an opportunity for us. And we have to capitalize on that opportunity. We can't just sit on that opportunity, because I always tell people that it went from being the hood, it went from being a war zone to an opportunity zone. But nothing changed overnight. They just decided to call it something different. The truth is, it's always been an opportunity. And I think that you can gain so much, and Erica gained so much, and Andre gained so much, and I gained so much by pouring into people and by investing into people. You get a return on that. And a lot of people don't have a vested interest in that return because maybe they're competing with you, they're competing with your community, they're competing with whatever. They want to make sure that their property values are higher, so they just whatever. But I think that we have, it's deeper than just the ROI. To me, I'm not just looking for the return. I'm looking to make a difference. I'm looking to create a legacy. And interestingly enough, when you create a legacy, you get very, very wealthy. If you look at anybody, if you study the greats, they changed society for the better. They didn't just set out to get rich. They looked out to improve people's lives. And by improving people's lives, they ended up becoming very, very successful. So, I mean, that's any business. Any business is an improvement on people's lives. Amazon.com improves people's lives. Walmart improves people's lives. Chick-fil-A improves our lives. So,
sandwich, yes.
I got asked the question, what entrepreneurship means. And I think that it's somebody who sees a problem and does something about it. And that's one thing. But also, it's just like, you just make people's lives better. Every single business does that for people. And so if you see people who have sucky lives, if you make their life better, you're going to become wealthy. So that's kind of what I set out to do. And I think that Bigger Pockets can kind of guide people in the wrong direction because they don't have an interest in that. They are come from a different circumstances, different demographics. But Lisa Phillips proved them wrong multiple times. And she was argued down to the floor.
I still feel like a lot of people on that website owe her apology. And like one of the dudes is in Ohio. I was like, don't make me visit Cleveland. Nah.
But even like with what we're creating with Blacker Pockets, I think that Blacker Pockets has the ability to be 10 times more successful than Bigger Pockets, and it likely will for a lot of reasons. I think part is just because we have a chip on our shoulder. We feel like especially Nita's like, man, I can't, like she gets really heated about that. And I think even Kendra's the same way.
It's disrespectful.
Yeah, for me, not so much. I don't really take it that personal, but I can empathize with that for sure because I have friends and family who have come from that, who still live in that, all of that stuff. But I think that it's what if you aren't leaning on that advantage. If you aren't learning to do the analysis and the research for yourself, you're going to leave money on the table. So don't take your cues from Bigger Pockets. Don't take your cues from Grant Cardone. Don't take your cues from Gary Vee. Take your cues from you based off of the experience, the research, and the analysis that you've done.
All that's facts and bars. Listen, there's something I definitely want to say. Also, the whole agent thing. I get these questions a lot. Well, Eric, I want to become a real estate agent. Oh, but the market's changing. And here's my thing. I haven't met quality agents who don't have rentals. I'm gonna be careful. Let me slice it right. I literally, when I first came to Austin, we went to a Keller Williams thing when I was getting my license. And every agent that was in that room, all the black agents in that room in Houston had like 3 rentals. I felt like a poor person. I was like, really? Everybody? You too? They're like, what do you mean, Erica? You're immersed in real estate. And these were young people, Charles. These were like 24, 25. You're immersed in real estate day in and day out, and you can't find quality deals. Like, how are you going to help me if you can't help yourself, right? And so there's nothing wrong with being a real estate agent. There's nothing wrong with, Andre Hatcher here, nothing wrong with being a mobile notary. There's nothing wrong with all these, but you have to have your money parked somewhere or making money for you long-term. So, I mean, a lot of agents, sometimes they have down years and up years, but guess what? I think one of the coolest ladies I know, she teaches one of the classes at the real estate school. She owns a duplex. She's owned it for years. Tenant doesn't know it's her. It's just another older retired person just like her who's living there and has never been a problem. It's been there for 5 years. And to this day, she's like, oh, who cares? You have to have a plan. So don't ask me the question, oh, what would be better? Would it be better to be a real estate agent or a home appraiser? I'm going to say home appraiser every day because they make bank on bank. But it's what do you do with the money? It's not just the money you make, it's the money you keep, the money you invest. And if you don't get nothing else out of all these shows I do, like, you got to have a way to make this money long-term pay you. So.
Yep.
But anyway, so we're gonna wrap it up so you can get over. Thank you, T Green, for the $1.99 super chat. Who else? Let's see. Andre Hatcher cracks me up. He's like, people talk about helping the poor, which should happen, but we have to be adults and get organized and keep our paperwork in order or get in order. Here's one thing. I'm gonna say this and tell me what your view is on it. Glendon Cameron was talking about millennials being antisocial. Like, they're not really using phones, they're not really talking, and that this recession is going to make them fix that. because you're going to have skills where you're talking to people or doing different things, or you're going to be exceptional at not talking to people, right? Like you're going to have to either get into marketplaces where you're going to have to talk to people, or you're going to be exceptional. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
It does. It does.
What are your feelings on that? If there's a recession, a lot of these millennials who are complaining about certain jobs, I mean,
I don't know. I never really thought about that.
I think it's because we're go-getters. We're a little bit different.
There are a lot of people that are comfortable in this recession. And I think that one of the good things is that it's going to force people to get uncomfortable and do things they don't want to do. I was watching this post, the girl Stacks in the City. She works 2 jobs, and she's always worked 2 jobs. She works a job in DC on Capitol Hill, and then she works as a server at Cracker Barrel. Mm-hmm. She said that the way people treat her is completely different from Cracker Barrel to Capitol Hill, but having 2 jobs has allowed her finances to just flourish. Mm-hmm. She owns, I think 2 rental properties, both in DC, which is not a cheap area to be. But I think that she I'm not sure if she attributes that, but it's the uncomfortable aspect, because you're having to work in a place where you are interacting with people, and it's not just behind a cell phone, being an Instagram model. You actually have to interact with people. So I could see how, I never really thought about that, but I think that the comfort thing is something that's going to be challenged. Absolutely. You have a lot of people with student loans who aren't willing to get that part-time job to pay off the student loans. And so they've been owing
$20,000 for 10 years. I'm like, 10 years?
Yeah.
But that's $150 a month. For 10 years, you be done.
Right. So
that's not even a part-time job, Charles. Like, I'm really that serious about it. I'm like, $20,000 over 10 years. It is not even a part-time job. That's you just managing not to eat out a couple times a week and taking $150 and throwing it at your student loan. Like, even when these things are in deferment, you can send money. Like, that's the thing. I'm just so confused. And a lot of people are like, there was a post, if I can find it, I'll do it again. She literally posted, I've been out of school 12 years. I still own student loan debt. And like 180 people were like, yeah, me too. And I'm like, so I start saying in the comment section, how much? It's been 12 years. How much? 30, 40. Nobody wanted to answer. People started clamming up. One person was like, well, I owed 80, Erica. Okay, but how much do you owe now? Like, if people, we gotta get like some real to it. Like, we can't say, oh, student loans are wrecking the future. And I'm like, I think it's the lack of you paying it wreck the future.
I have this theory that a lot of people that went to college are like rappers, where they go and they get their degree and then they spend all their time and their money and their resources stunning on the gram, which is what rappers do. They don't put it back into their community. They don't take care of their responsibilities because that's not sexy. And so all the money that they make goes into trying to get as much attention as they can on the internet. And I think that's another thing that hopefully this recession does, is it kind of humbles people. But it's just funny to kind of see how that culture is kind of morphed. It's like people, as soon as they get it, they got to show it. And it's unfortunate. I see it in a lot of athletes too, where you see like these new athletes just signed a check, rookies in the league, and they got a Rolls Royce.
They bought their mama a house. Like, man, your mama ain't bought a house in all these years. Don't buy your mama no damn house.
Just stay where she is. I think that every athlete, and I have a push towards doing this, needs to take their salary while they're playing and then allocate it every year for their life expectancy and then live out of that per year. Because if you retire, let's say if you work until you're 60 and you retire, everything that you have saved up at the point of retirement, you have to live off for the rest of your life expectancy. If you're an athlete and you retire, it should be treated the same. You should have to live off of everything that you made. Otherwise, you're going to go broke. A lot of times what people will do is they'll make $10 million for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years as a professional athlete, and they'll live as though they make $10 million a year. And then after those years are over, they have no money. And then they're just out here not making any money. So I think a strategy is to figure out a way to do it. Either you're going to buy rental properties, either you're going to buy a business, buy trucks. There's so much information out there these days, and you don't even have to do it your own. You can actually do it through somebody like myself. You can do it through somebody like Hood Estates. You can do it through somebody like John Delia, which we're working on doing some business next year. So I just think it's kind of interesting to see these young men do this, and hopefully they'll watch this and realize that there's a better way.
Dude. And then like there were some of those hazing that was going on where they were making rookies pay the dinner for all these other athletes that have been there for 10, 15 years. I'm like, oh, hell no. Hell no. Like, that's just too much. So, I mean,
we got off topic, super off topic.
I know. We're going to wrap it up. So look, somebody said 640 a month on student loans. Woo. And he's almost done. Congratulations. That's a house mortgage. I worked in financial aid office, and I worked at HR Block for 3 years, but I worked in a financial aid office. And what I learned is a lot of people were living well off of those checks. Like, they had apartments, they had new cars, they actually went on these senior trips and vacations. So, I mean, again, like, what's up, Malik Vanderpool? But yeah, I'm going to do a future video about how to retire. I probably have to use the whiteboard. I have a big whiteboard at the office that's rollable. Because a lot of people are like, Erica, how much do I need a money mustache that I can retire so low? And I'm like, even if you do $300,000 at 20%, that's 60 grand, you know, 60 grand a year. Well, on average, most people are gonna get 10%. So that's 30 grand a year. So again, people, you know, we'll do a video. I'm gonna do a video on that in the future. So, but Ben the bartender, you're right. They never tried to pay him off. They just kept going in deferment.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you send a $50 check a month, something. So,
like, I don't know if you talked about this on your show, but I really am a fan of the concept of financial freedom, as opposed to
fire movement. We've been talking about it, trying to get different perspectives on it. Because it's two different schools of thought, right? It's like when we were at FidCon, what I loved about FidCon is it just exposed me to all these people. I was like, oh, this is awesome. So there's so many people I'm going to go visit on the East Coast in this upcoming year, but it's two thoughts of school of thoughts. People, one thought was like, Lane and some of the apartment investors were there. They were like, I'm going to get as much rental properties as possible and, you know, cash flowing notes and deals as possible. The other half of people were like, no, I'm going to be so debt free, but I'm going to be real frugal. And something about trying to squeeze yourself to live under $40,000 or $50,000 a year just so you can say, I'm free. Like, you know, expenses are going to increase. It's a lot of them that were there were young and married, but they didn't have kids. You know, so they got 2 incomes, no kids, but you got to add kids to that equation. You got to add surgeries, getting older, any kind of thing. You know what I mean? So the fire movement, I love it, but it's tough because it's like, it's two schools of thought. It's like, are you willing to do whatever it takes for you to be free? Or do you want to scrunch down so you can get free? So, and what you're probably on the debt side of that one too, right? Probably.
I like both. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of paying off your debt, being debt free, have the house paid off, car paid off. And then I also like the idea of accumulating income producing assets. So I think it's twofold. Mm-hmm. Because in all actuality, you should be doing that in the first place. You should be trying to rapidly knock out your mortgage instead of just trying to carry that debt until you die. I think I'm never an either or type person. I'm always an all or an and. And so I think that in certain ways, they complement each other. And that's why I like the book Set for Life by Scott Trench. I think he's both also. He talks about frugality. He also talks about accumulating income producing assets. So I don't know. I didn't know that it was separate. I didn't know that people had different opinions.
Yeah, it's you know, Susie Orman came out here wilding out, but she did what she wanted to do. She wanted attention, so that's what she got. She basically was like, this is ridiculous. You can't retire off $1 million. You know, what if you're gonna have a heart attack or something happen? Like, she just basically went on like 7 shows and was like, that's stupid. $1 million's not enough. You can't retire off that. And I said, you know, I think for a long time, the fire movement was mostly these tech nerdy guys. And I've said it on this show several times. Like, my friends that I associate here in Austin, they're all engineers. So sometimes they'll take 6 months off, and literally Samsung, because it's so stressful, lets people take it off. And they'd be like, okay, you're supposed to be back to work in August. And people literally take off. Same with Dell. They have it in the budgets because sometimes they're stressful jobs. And they literally let people take off and come back. But you got to think, this person's been making 120 since they were 23 years old, and now they're 33 and want to take a vacation. They can do that. They're in a financial position to do so.
I feel like the problem is the way people define retirement. A lot of people think retirement means you don't work, when retirement just means maybe you don't work for the man anymore, Now you work for your legacy. And so if your house is paid off, if you have enough assets to float you so that you can pay for your living expenses, then you wake up every day and you build a business. Then you wake up every day and you acquire properties for no cash out of pocket. Then you wake up every day and you strategize on building that app or doing something that's going to create your legacy. And so it's like, you don't get rich and then retire. And that's what a lot of people try to do. They want to get to $1 million and retire. It's like, no, you retire yourself and then you get rich. And so you can do that multiple ways. You can do that by paying off your house. If your house is paid off, you are retired. I try to tell my parents that all the time. I was like, you don't have to get to multiple millions of dollars. You need to pay off the house. If you pay off the house, then you have $2,000, $3,000 in your pocket. And then what can you do with your time? Whatever the heck you want. Then you can work part-time. Then you can just work tax season if you really want to. And so I think that people have this, and I think that's one of my biggest pet peeves is everybody's trying to get to this infinite number. Rich is an infinite number, but your mortgage isn't. Your mortgage is $300,000. It's a lot easier to get rid of $300,000 than it is to get to infinity. You're never going to get to infinity. And so you're always going to be working, and that's what they want you to do. And that's what I try to tell people. Like, a lot of these things work hand in hand. Your 401k and your mortgage company and your job, it's a whole bunch of old men that go to the same country club and they plot on how they can all take over the world. And I don't mean to be real, what do I call it?
Conspiracy or whatever.
The
Illuminati.
But it's true. Like, real estate investors hang with real estate investors. Business owners hang with business owners. Wealthy people hang out with wealthy people. And so it's up to you to see through it so that you can save your family, so that you can elevate your family. That's just my thoughts on it. I think that, and that's just how I live life. I see what they want us to do, and I'm like, nah, I'm going to Detroit. I see they want us to invest in Inglewood, and I'm like, nah, I'm going to Detroit. Because personally, I think that the Inglewood thing might not play out how people are playing it out either.
Oh, yeah. I mean, prime example, there's a YouTuber, there's one of my classy climbers. I don't know if she's still watching. She's out living her life now. She's been working a job for 18 years. She did not like Charles. And guess what she finally did? She bought a condo, actually a townhouse, well, it's a condo in Houston for $55,000. It's in an area where it's like techie and people are moving there. Her mortgage is $321, Charles, $321. You know what she did? Quit that job. She was like, I realized all these years I've been working to pay $2,000 rent in Houston in the nice spots of town and doing all this stuff. My mortgage is $321. I ain't got to work here no more. I can go do other creative things. And that's true freedom. So, I mean, if y'all got anything out of that, I hope you did. I hope you figured out what we're trying to say. But a lot of y'all, the biggest cost to your life is your car and mortgage. So when I'm on here, I don't rant against y'all not having nice things. I just want y'all to do the math on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, Eric, I need to get that Lexus. I got to get it. And then when you do the math on, you're paying $500 a month. And I know somebody's going to argue in the comments. $500 a month. Then you're paying $200 a month in insurance because it's a Lexus. Then you're paying $200 in gas because a lot of people commute. And then, you keep doing the math on maintenance and issues. You're talking about $1,000 a month, y'all. Yeah. And people don't look at it that way. They're like, no. And I'm like, even though gas is cheap, it's like $1.99 here in Texas. So my whole thing is I'm buying myself a Tacoma cash truck for my birthday. Mm-hmm. That's I'm buying it cash. I already have the guy I'm going to work with, everything, right? And it's not going to be a brand new, it's going to be a year before Tacoma. And that's my treat to myself. But he says, it's funny that you're trying to buy a truck because when gas is low, everybody's trying to buy a truck. When gas is high, now they're trying to figure out how to resort back to a smaller car or the truck's parked in the yard. And I go, that's the freedom of being able to control your income. You know what I mean? Like, that's the freedom of having no car payment. That's the freedom of like I can make that choice. So, yeah. Man, somebody cracking me up. They said they drive a Lexus and live in a sardine can. Listen, they go on those granite countertops in Atlanta, them 600 square foot apartments. I'm like, bro, you get a whole house.
Right.
So anyway, all right, you guys. Yeah, been to bartender, oil changes, brakes, tires. Listen, for real, all those. Chipper line, you got a dump truck in September. Definitely, let's talk about that in the future. But anyway, look, you guys, I don't want to keep Todd Millie up all night. You guys have been hilarious. Thank you for coming on and talking about the BRRRR strategy. I just wanted to give different perspectives on it because literally, I can't name off everybody I want to say, but they'll show us a screenshot, and every day they get 10 to 15 messages asking them about the BRRRR strategy. Like we hate that. We hate the word BRRRR strategy at this point. Like literally 10, 15. Hey, Erica, what if I go over here and BRRRR? Like, bro, like you're already getting ready to ask me about some BRRRR strategy. Don't do it.
It's like, a lot of variables that you can't control. I was reading the comments and somebody said that they had done one with the HELOC, and it's good when it's good, but the worst thing that could happen is the market turns, and not only do you lose the rental or the investment property, but then they're also coming after your house.
They want the money.
Yeah.
Call your line.
So you have to be very careful about how you're funding your BRRRRs and the economics surrounding the BRRRR. I think it's a great strategy. I just think that it might be past its time. I think that so many people that are doing it is you have to be very careful and you have to insure it. So just tread safely.
Okay. Thank you, Charles, for coming on here. Charles, what is your college you went to? And what's your major?
Cal State San Bernardino. I have an undergrad degree in finance for the Cal State.
Okay, so I'm starting to ask more and more the people that come on, not for the purpose of like stunting on degrees, but like different ways that we can go to school for discount or cheap, or different things like that, right? So I'm bringing it in.
At Pepperdine for my MBA, and then I went to law school in Orange County.
Bam. So look, you hear that, right? Finance. Like somebody was telling me, what's the point of finance degrees and business degrees? But okay, I'm not gonna argue with y'all.
That'll be 20 minutes on the conversation.
I know, so we're gonna leave it there. So look, thank you so much, Todd, for coming in. Charles Ogilby the third, JD, MBA, Todd Capital Podcast, Todd Capital Tax, Todd Capital Consulting, Todd Capital LLC Creations.
Yeah.
And tell them where they can find you.
So first, it's a lot of joint ventures. I partner with a lot of people, I co-brand. I tell people that every logo, every venture is just a stream of income. But you can find us at the website, www.capitaltodd.com. We're in the process of revamping that site. It's going to look awesome. We're working with some people who are going to redesign that entire site and then start to kind of merge everything that we have going on into that site. So ultimately, you'll be able to access the investment club for real estate, the investment club for stocks. You'll be able to contribute money through those through the website. Also going to build in some forums. Also working on building out the Blacker Pockets website. You can find Blacker Pockets on Instagram at Blacker Pockets. We're always sharing inspiring stories. We're always trying to educate our followers, because the goal is just to kind of create a community of African-American investors or investors in general that are willing to invest in the inner city. So we want to teach people how to do that successfully, because it's possible, and highly lucrative. The best returns are oftentimes in the ghetto. You can find myself at Todd Millionaire on Instagram and Twitter. If you're interested in joining either of the investment clubs, I'm not going to say that. If you're interested in joining the investment club for stocks, email membership@capitaltodd.com. If you are interested in joining the investment club for real estate, email propertymanagement@capitaltodd.com. That.
Say those one more time.
Also, membership@capitaltodd.com. Capital Todd, and then property management at capitaltodd.com. Membership is ran by Candace, and property management is ran by Lance. We're going to be doing dope stuff this year. Like, the goal is to take everything we did and just do even more. So Todd Capital Transportation might be coming. Todd Capital Ventures might be coming.
Hey man, I might have an extra truck. You find the drivers. Listen, we've had people in the comment section talking, I'm a driver. What's up? I'm like, call me. What's up?
I can feel everything, man. It's kind of like if you go to Detroit, you see Ford everything. We're gonna have Todd Capital everything in Detroit.
Did you see me and Kira harassing you for our t-shirts earlier?
I did. You got some shirts for sure.
I already emailed everything. I'm like, I put my 25 in, and I put my messages for my shirt. What's up? Nah.
I'm getting. I have one that's black and it says Todd Capital across the front.
Yeah.
So I definitely have them going. Those are gonna be coming.
Okay. So all right, guys. Listen, we've been up late. Thank you so much. Listen, if you have been watching the show, you know I'm Erica Williams, author of Smartphone Millionaire: How to Buy Land, Real Estate, Invest, People, Businesses for the Palm of Your Hand. Also in the back of the book, I talk about buying online businesses for those of you who asked again. So yes, that's in the back of the book. But look, I love bringing on great people who could talk to y'all and inspire you guys and motivate you to do big things next year. As Andre Hatchett said in the comments, $500 and you in on a house, or $1,000 and you in on a house. Hey, come to Todd Capital. All right, she's got the shirt on. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Charles, for hanging out so late. All right, you guys, this is Erica, Classy Client Blog. Later.